Anyway,
Okay.
it's not that bad.
Nice of you. Sisters.
Good to see you, Dr. Sikandrani.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Yes, good to
Nice.
see
I
you.
can actually, we have a room full here. We have a room full here.
Oh, mashallah,
good.
There are a lot
mashallah.
of students.
Mashallah.
So
Yeah,
I
very
think this is the largest class you have.
yes,
Marvelous.
yes, yes, yes. Extremely.
Doctor, next week, inshallah,
Yes, yes.
we'd like to make a video conference with you about the e-learning program in Irki, okay? Other than
Inshallah, inshallah.
the special conference call, okay? Inshallah. So you have any
Yes, I told Dr. Ubaidullah that I'll be here on Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, I'll be away actually. So if it's Monday, Tuesday, it's good.
yeah, we'll do it inshallah, maybe Monday or Tuesday, yes. We'll inform you very soon.
Okay.
Okay.
You want to do?
No, thank you very much. Everybody from all centers, thank you very much for your listening and being there.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the lecture.
I also would
Assalamu
like to
alaikum.
thank everybody and thank for Dr. Tariqullah Khan for his elaborate lecture and his patience during this lecture. See you again next week. The chief consultant in Al-Rajihi Bank in Saudi Arabia in 1995 and was promoted to the bank manager or to the rank of a manager and the manager of research and development in the Sharia group in 1998. He joined the Islamic Development Bank in December 2004 and currently he is the deputy director of IRTI. So Dr. Sami Solim can start your lecture, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm glad to be with you again today discussing simulation in Islamic economics. The concept of simulation is already there, of course, for years in economics, but here we'll be talking about agent-based simulation, a different kind or a new kind of simulation technique, relatively new, otherwise it has been there for almost 15 years. But it's a relatively new technique, and we shall see that this technique is also related to a paradigm that is different from the mainstream economics or the new classical economics widely or in most universities it is taught and practiced in many economic circles. So this new paradigm with this new technique, okay, would give us an opportunity to show how Islamic economic concepts are more relevant to the reality than the new classical economics. Okay, so in the mainstream approach or the new classical approach has many limits. Almost everybody agrees on that. There are certain features of Islamic economics that cannot be handled properly by the new classical techniques, and therefore there is a need for a different approach. By the way, not only Islamic economics has difficulty using the new classical techniques. There are many schools of economic thought, in institutional economics, behavioral economics, and many others who are not really happy with the new classical approach. So Islamic economics is only one school of several schools that are not very happy with the new classical approach. So let's see what are the alternatives that or what are exactly the limits. The new classical approach basically assumes from the start that the choice set, the set from which a consumer or a producer chooses, is already fixed, already determined and bounded. It's already closed and determined, and therefore the only problem for a decision maker, either the consumer or the producer, is simply to choose from this predetermined, well-known set. And therefore you maximize either your utility as a consumer or profits if a producer from this choice set. Since the world, according to new classical theory, is basically fixed, all changes are repeated I mean, it is only repeating itself over and over and over again. The approach used is simply deductive logic, because it's very relevant to quite general and fixed structures. There is no discovery, no creativity in the new classical theory. Entrepreneurship, innovations, all these are absent from the new classical theory for a simple reason, that the choice set is already known, or assumed to be already known, already determined, and the only problem is simply to find that combination of goods or production factors that will maximize the objective function. There is no room for discovery, creativity, innovation. All these are absent from the theory, the new classical theory. The alternative paradigm is complexity theory. Okay, simply says that the world is complex. That's not very interesting to say that this is the heart of the matter, because everybody agrees that the world is complex. But the complexity theory, of course, has something more to say. It says that the choice set itself, from which a decision maker shall choose, is not bounded. It is open, changing over time, perpetual novelty. There are options that are not computable. Even if you can describe mathematically how to choose, that it's not always easy or possible to determine how to calculate this formula. This is in mathematical sciences, computability is a very important issue. You can have an objective function, but you will not be able to systematically compute that function. There are true statements, even in mathematics, there are true statements that cannot be proven. This is Gödel theorem. If any of you are interested, you can go through that. So, in the complexity theory, basically, you cannot separate the process from the final outcome. New classical theory basically ignores the process. It doesn't matter how do you reach your final choice. You will get exactly the same utility and the same profit. But complexity theory says that since the world is extremely complex and highly nonlinear, therefore it is important to know what is the process through which you learn, you discover, and you find the choices that are available to you. And by the way, just as a digression, this financial crisis should not have happened in a new classical world. In a new classical world, in efficient market, according to efficient market hypothesis, there should be no crisis at all. Markets should adjust themselves perfectly to any negative external shocks, and therefore we get back to equilibrium soon, or after some time. But now to have a crisis, to have a collapse of the market, this is against the perfect market or efficient market hypothesis assumed by new classical theory. So everyday life tells us that the new classical theory is not a realistic theory. It is helpful, it is useful as a starting point, or simply to familiarize ourselves with certain aspects of markets, but not to model the reality. Complexity theory would allow us to model the process, not only the final outcome or the choice set, but also how this choice set, or how do we reach the final outcome. Instead of assuming agents are perfectly rational, there is ecological rationality, i.e., within the certain environment, simple techniques would be suitable rather than pure deductive approaches, and therefore we need induction, we need discovery, we need surveys, we need to explore the reality and approaches to get to the reality. So for a simple comparison, complexity theory versus new classical theory. New classical theory assumes the landscape itself, the world itself, to be simple. But complexity theory says no. We have to simplify something, of course. You cannot progress without simplifying something. So in new classical theory, what is simplified is the landscape. The choice set is assumed to be simplified. Complexity theory says no. The world is too complex, but this complex world could arise from simple processes. The process behind this complex behavior could be very simple. And that is the challenge. And that's the beauty, by the way. From a very simple process, you get very complex behavior and very complex results. In neoclassical theory, decision rule is maximization, but in complexity theory, it's adaptation. You learn the reality, and then according to what you learn, you put a decision rule, and then after your decision is made, you revise the data, you revise the outcome, and then put a new or adjust your decision rule according to the reality. This is adaptation. Maximization assumes that the world is fixed, you simply choose the best. Therefore, the decision rule in neoclassical theory is deductive logic, but in complexity theory it is more of induction. You can use deduction for local behavior, but for the global behavior or global decisions, you need induction. Rationality is individual in case of neoclassical theory, but it is ecological. It's a group. If you heard about it, it's a wisdom of the crowd. The group is always smarter than the individual. Neoclassical theory assumes the individual is almost perfect in terms of rationality, ability to compute, but complexity theory assumes that the agent doesn't have to be that smart, but as a group, when interacting with the ecology, with the environment, the group will be much smarter than the individual. Okay, complexes, there are two properties of complex systems, self-organization and emergence. Self-organization means that with local interactions, if you have a system of agents, society, ants, colonies, the brain system, or whatever, this system would self-organize by local interactions. Each bird or each agent, we will get to some examples, simply interacts with its neighbors, and then, surprisingly, the whole group become organized. You get global order with local interaction and local information. So in self-organization, we mean that from only local interaction, each agent interacts with its neighbors, we get a global order. So it's a decentralized global order. You don't need a leader, so to speak, or a centralized authority to dictate the order. Order would emerge, so to speak, from local interaction. One of the most widely cited examples, bird flocks. When birds fly together, they move together as if it was one body or one team. Some people might think that the first bird in this flock is the leader, but this is not true. There is no leader. In a bird flock, group of birds flying together, there is no leader. So how would this group is able to move together at the same time? They move whenever they are exploring food areas or avoiding certain dangers. They move together as if they are one person, as if they have a certain leader who is responsible of telling everyone which way to go. But that's not the case. There is no leader, there is no centralized authority telling birds where to go. How? First of all, why? Why would birds choose, or why would birds move together? This will give them better visibility, by the way, simply because if you have 15 or 20 or 50 birds together, then they are able to discover areas of food or avoid areas of danger much more better than a single bird can do that. So if you have 50 birds, you have 100 eyes, and therefore it will be much better to discover food areas or avoid dangers. So the group would have much more abilities, so to speak, than the individual. So this is the why. Why do they have, what is the function of this flock? Now this group have no leader. The rule is very simple. For each bird, for each member or each agent in this group, would follow the following rules. First of all, follow your neighbors. or the average direction of your neighbors.